Hi, I'm Ryan Scott,
And I'm Samantha Ariel.
and welcome to our Clef podcast. Here, approximately once a week, we will discuss a new classical music composer. We will always begin with a short biography about their lives and what contributions they made to musical society, following with a review of some of their more famous pieces. Along with an audio sample, if available, we will also discuss where these pieces have been used in media throughout the ages.
In our last podcast, we discussed composers from both France and Italy. Now we're moving on to Germany with Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach went through tough times during his childhood. At first, everything was going well, and his father introduced him to music by teaching him string playing. He also got the opportunity to sing in the choir at the court church, St. George's. However, things began to take a turn for the worse in 1694 when his mother died, followed by his father 1 year later. Bach's 23-year-old brother, Johann Christoph Bach, took him in. When Bach was 15, he moved out of his brother's house after trying for and obtaining a scholarship to the St. Michael's School in Lübeck. Bach soon got a job at a new church in Arnstadt to inaugurate the new organ there. People liked his playing, so they hired him as their organist. In Arnstadt, Bach began to show his hot-tempered personality when he got into arguments with the church council over the length of hymn preludes. He even drew his sword on a low-quality musician, calling him a nanny goat bassoonist. In November of 1705, he traveled about 470 kilometers from Arnstadt back to Lübeck by foot to hear the organist and composer Dietrich Buxtehude play in a special Advent concert. He stayed too long in the city and got fed up with the church council. He soon began looking for work elsewhere. His next job lied in Mühlhausen as the organist of the St. Blasius Church. In the fall of 1707, Bach married Maria Barbara Bach, his orphan distant cousin. Yeah, he married his distant cousin, I know. Maria Barbara gave birth to 7 children over the next 12 years. 3 of them became professional musicians. Bach resigned from his position in Mühlhausen after about a year to accept a better job at the ducal court in Weimar. He was employed by Wilhelm Ernst, the Duke of Weimar, and served 9 years in the Weimar court as an organist and concertmaster. It was here during this time that Bach became acquainted with a wide variety of French and Italian music. He even ran into, as a matter of fact, some of Antonio Vivaldi's concertos. They had a great impact on Bach's style. In the fall of 1717, Bach was invited to the court of Prince Leopold of Anhalt-Kirtland to become a chapelmaster. Prince Leopold understood and had a love for music. He could sing bass as well as play the violin and harpsichord. Later in his years, he said that the time he spent in Kirtland were some of the happiest of his life. In the summer of 1720, Bach's wife passed away, and in the following year he remarried to Anna Magdalena Wiltgen, whom was about 16 years younger than him. Anna Magdalena had 13 kids, but only 6 survived infancy. 2 of those 6 became famous musicians, Johann Christoph Friedrich Bach and Johann Christian Bach. In 1722, the job of music teacher at the St. Thomas School, which was located in Leipzig, became open. Bach applied and got the position, moving his family in 1723. Although Bach wasn't very happy about his teaching job, he took his duties as a church composer very seriously. He wrote 5 annual cycles of cantatas, each one containing about 60 works, 1 for each festival day and Sunday of the church year, and a passion for Good Friday. He soon became upset with the mediocre quality of the performers he had to use and stopped composing cantatas for church altogether in 1729, instead taking over the directorship of a group of university students who put on public concerts in Zimmermann's coffee house. Wow, Bach went all the way from composing for dukes and princes to concerts at a coffee shop. He stopped directing for the university students in 1737, and until the end of his life turned to private projects. Around 1749, Bach's eyesight began to fail seriously. In the spring of 1750, Bach let a visiting eye surgeon who bragged of having performed successful operations in other places take care of him. He was given 2 operations, but both proved to be failures. The drugs he was given broke his health, which had been strong and healthy up to this point. However, on July 18th, he could suddenly see again, but after only a few hours, he suffered a stroke and died 10 days later. Bach was truly an inspirational musician and is one of the most famous. He had a relatively long life and accomplished much in that time. Take it away, Ryan, with some of Bach's music.
Bach is considered by many to be the greatest composer of all time. Before he had reached his 30s, he had mastered the organ and violin. He was also an excellent singer and sang in many choirs since he had been a boy. Never leaving his home country of Germany, he found himself composing hundreds of instrumental pieces, while he served as Kapellmeister in the courts of Prince Leopold in Curtland. Perhaps the most famous of these pieces are the 6 Concerti Grossi, composed for the Duke of Brandenburg in 1721. Better known as the Brandenburg Concertos, they are prime examples of the usage of the concerto grosso form. Concerto grosso is a music form in which a musical piece is passed from a small group of instruments to an entire orchestra of strings and continuo. A segment of this will be played shortly. Along with his hundreds of concerto and sonata pieces, he also wrote possibly the most famous composition in history, his Toccata and Fugue in D minor. Many of you will know this as the theme to Dracula. Now, some of you may not know that Bach actually wrote this piece while waiting for his wife to finish dinner one evening.
Oh, really?
Yep, and guess people can't say anymore that you can't think on an empty stomach. Oh, come on, that was funny. Alright, well, anyway, to get into the definitions of toccata and fugue, toccata is basically a short demonstration piece for a keyboard instrument and is played right before a much more detailed and complex composition. You can tell the toccata apart because it doesn't sound too much like the rest of the composition, but still flows nicely into it. A fugue is a piece of music with 3 or 4 instrumental voices imitating each other, one right after the next. The finished product sounds much like the voices are chasing each other. This is possible through the use of sequences. Now, sequences are a way of climbing up or down a scale using different repetitive notes. For example, in the key of C, one could go up the scale from C to C this way: C, D, E, D, E, F, G, A, G, A, B, and A, B, C. Now, there are many different sequences one could do, even skipping certain notes. For instance, a pentatonic sequence which skips the 4th and 7th notes in a key would go something like. Bach is known for pioneering that creative use of scales in music, and you can greatly hear it in many of his pieces, including what we are sampling today. And now, a segment from his Brandenburg Concerto No. 3.
All right, and that was Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 3. I have to say, I like how it blends with the different strings. They all sound really good together, and if you listen hard, you can tell which of the different string instruments it is. You can hear the bass really low in the back if you listen hard, and then you can tell the difference between the violins and the cellos and all that good stuff. So what'd you think, Ryan?
I liked how built up and added all the instruments one at a time, and I've always been a big fan of that in any kind of orchestral arrangement or even popular music in general. And I really like how he harmonized all the string instruments, making each one work individually, but also good as a whole.
Yeah, I don't think I liked it as much as I liked the Dracula piece, just because I like the organ a lot.
All right, that concludes our Bach episode of our Clef podcast, and stay tuned next time for George Frederick Handel.